What's poppin' guys, Sizzle here, and today we're taking a look at the SSG-08 skins in CS, or, Scout skins, because that's what 99% of people call it. First off we have stock, which is kind of an interesting stock weapon, the fact that it's not just, like a metal, worn down version of the weapon. It has more of like almost a camo pattern going on here, like you can see in the back here, this is like almost like a gray camo skin. And for that reason, I like it even less than I do most other stocks. I don't like camo skins very much, but I mean, overall, you can't really rag on this too much. I mean, solid color scheme, not too much wear in the right places where it matters, like in the middle here and on the scope where you're really looking. And I mean, it's okay. It's okay at the end of the day. It's definitely a lower D tier for me though, especially in comparison to a lot of other stock skins. Then we have our first skin here, the SSG-08 Lichten Dashed. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this thing. I mean, these are probably this is probably the worst possible combination of colors. Plus, it's an old skin, so it has a ton of wear. I mean, just look at the back right here. It's like almost entirely scraped off, and this is almost like fact new, or it is, I think, actually. But either way. This just looks really ugly. It's like every bad color scheme, every bad color put together, with a horrible pattern to it too, and a bunch of dirt everywhere and everything. It just looks bad. I don't know who would like this skin, to be frank with you. Then we have the classic, the Scout Blue Spruce. This is actually, if you guys didn't know, the most common skin in all of CS. Like the most, at least for as far as every database is concerned. This is the skin with the most in existence, and that's a good thing because it's a clean skin. It's definitely not like super amazing. I mean, you still have all the wear in the front and back and whatever, but the general main part of the skin is just a solid, simple recolor. Not the best colors in the world, but definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't know if this is true for all scouts, but at least here they actually even color the scope, which is kind of big, because that's where most of your attention is drawn with the scout. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a simple, solid recolor. Not amazing colors, but definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I would say it's definitely a solid C tier, if I can find anything to sit. Definitely a solid C tier skin, like high C tier, almost B tier. Then we have the Scout Sand Dune, which is the same thing. I mean, it's same thing, but with a nicer color. I'm still not sure if I put this up in B tier because it's got a weird thing going on. The scope is a lot more bright than the body for some reason, and then the handle and thing in the back are even darker, but you don't really ever see those, so it's not that big of an issue. But yeah, I mean, generally a solid recolor, a lot more bright and noticeable in comparison to the other scout skin, like the Blue Spruce or whatever. If I had to guess, it's this one. I'm gonna put it as a high C for now, honestly. No, you know what, I think this will probably end up in B tier, so I'm putting it as a low B tier. And I might move it down later if everything ends up being really bad. Then we have the Scout Redstone. Yet another simple recolor one. The difference with this one and the other two, though, is this uses extremely dull and dark colors. Especially the color on the scope is kind of bad. I know this is actually the color that's on the sand dune somewhere, I think in the back or whatever. But it's really bad in isolation when not combined with the other, sand colors. And the red use on the body is just bad, to be frank with you. This kind of, it's probably still better than stock, I'll give it that, but that's about all the credit I can give. I don't think it looks that nice, even if it is relatively simple. And somewhat clean. It's just really dull. You're not gonna, like, the part you're gonna see is a bad color, the part you almost never see is just a really dull color. And that's really all there is to it. I made the Scout Jungle Dash, which, it's the same as that first skin, but with slightly better colors. Emphasis on slight, though, because this is basically the same really shitty pattern with just slightly less shitty, but still really bad, colors on it. So it's definitely a solid F tier, belongs with the other one. Don't know who's using this. Then we have the Scout Prey. I've seen this one a lot for some reason. Maybe, I don't actually know why, because it's a 2021 skin, but yeah. I don't really know why I'm seeing too much of this. I mean, the scope actually looks kind of clean with this little stripe design, but the main part of the weapon doesn't look that clean. I mean, still better than stock, I'll give it that, but it's kind of dull. I guess the difference here, though, between this and the one from the Norse collection is that the design here actually fits with the stock barrel that's completely untouched, which kind of goes pretty well. And also this pattern is really good at hiding wear. Like, there's a lot of wear on this all over the place, but because the actual pattern itself almost looks like wear, this almost disguises the wear in your weapon a bit more. So I guess it's a bit better than that other thing that we said is better than stock, but I really can't give this one too much credit here. So I am going to put it as a higher D tier, but definitely not a high D tier. I don't want you to make that mistake. I think it's this one. Seems about right. So yeah, high D tier for what we currently have. But then we have the Scout Mayan Dreams, which, yeah, that's like a sand dune if it wasn't super clean, because it has a design here. The design, I don't know what this is. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what the design on here is. The actual background behind whatever this thing's supposed to be is kind of clean, honestly. But I just don't. I think it's maybe supposed to be a sphinx or something in the front here, but it's really, really hard to tell like what you're actually looking at here, and that's kind of a problem when it comes to skins. Overall, I mean, just pretty bland otherwise, and just a straight downgrade to the sand dune pretty much every way. I'd say it's actually a bit worse than stock, but still deserving of at least being put in the D tier. So yeah, I'm gonna put it under stock in the D tier. Pretty low D tier though, almost F tier honestly. Then we have the Scout Tropical Storm, which is trying something. It's at least a really bright skin. Like, you're gonna notice this is a skin. Yet again, it's one of those skins that doesn't color the barrel, and in this case, the barrel looks completely different to the rest of the weapon, so that's kind of a really bad thing. The actual design on the camo is okay at best. I mean, it's nothing horrible, but it really isn't great. Like, these palm tree leaves kind of look bad if you saw them a bit more, and then the main design is just a pretty simple, like, green and blue pattern, like the colors that you'll see on, like, a globe or whatever. But it is really bright, so I'll give it that. And honestly, just being really bright and somewhat clean is enough to put it as a low C tier for me. Because yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than stock, definitely better than everything else in the D tier, just with its solid color scheme, even if the design's kind of bad. Then we have the Scout Carbon Fiber, which, yeah, I mean, it's just clean. It takes all the bad parts of stock and just covers it with this really nice, clean texture. This texture fits really well with the rest of stock too, in most lighting. Like, you'll be looking at this, and I mean, it's just a cleaner version of stock, like miles cleaner than stock. If this was stock, honestly, would put it much higher, and it's not, but it's still really clean. Kind of put it above what we just looked at, but still below the blue spruce, because I think the simple clean colors look better. But if you liked how stock looked, this is just pretty much a straight upgrade in every way, in my opinion. Then we have the Acid Fade, the notorious trade-up skin. I'm glad that this is a trade-up skin because it looks god-awful. Like, it's got something here, something gray, but it's super shiny, and then the back is not a horrible color green when it's shiny, but when it's not shiny, it's a pretty bad color green that almost looks yellow. And that's really it. I mean, it's mostly just stock at the end of the day. It actually is somewhat cleaner than stock, weirdly enough, because this front part is just a cleaner version of the base with, like, less scratches, and this thing's always, like, super factory new. Like, I think the lowest this can be is, like, 0.03 or something, which is insane. That's why it's a trade-up skin, but I'm glad this is a trade-up skin. Like, it's it's not great. It's nothing horrible, but it's really not great. I can really only give it credit for being better than stock, maybe. So I'll put it right above stock in D tier. But it's only marginally better. I wouldn't like buy this as a play skin. Then we have the Scout Detour. One I haven't seen really ever. And it's kind of unfortunate. It's got a pretty interesting thing going on. I mean, it is mostly stock with the body here, which is kind of bad for the Scout, because the scope is where most people look. Like, genuinely, most of the time I'm looking at the Scout, I'm looking right at the scope. But it's pretty nice. I mean, it's got a black and white color scheme with stock part even adding on to that. It almost has the same look as, like, the tuxedo on the XM1014. And the design on the actual weapon is clean. I mean, you just have a bunch of arrows kind of climbing over each other in the back with something else kind of going on too, but it's kind of like the skin is, you know, reaching forward. Which, I don't know, it looks kind of clean. It's got really nice colors, works really well with stock for the most part, other than like really bad lighting. Like if you see it like this, it looks bad, but you never see it like this unless you're maybe inspecting it. So otherwise, it just looks like a pretty clean black and white skin. And I like that quite a lot, honestly. I'd say this is definitely a solid... I'm kind of stuck here, because I really do like the design here. I really like the black and white, but the sand dune is just clean. It's like a really clean, simple, solid color. I'll put it above it. I think it kind of deserved it. It's honestly going to go in the A tier for now, but it'll probably be moved down later when we have like better skins showing up. But I mean, I'm kind of sad this is just such an expensive skin. It's like $5 or something, which is a lot when most of the other skins we've seen are like 10 to 20 cents. But it's just a nice, clean skin. Then we have the Scout Handbrake. I clicked on the wrong one here. We have the Scout Handbrake, which... it's interesting. Yet again, not coloring the scope, but it did color everything else, including the barrel, and I actually really like this like metallic look for the barrel. It goes well with the rest of what they got going on here, which is just a simple, nice pattern. I don't even know how to describe the pattern I'm looking at, but it does look nice, I will say that. Color scheme's overall nice, it's got a really clean finish overall. I know this one's factory new, but like, I really don't see any scratches anywhere. Yeah, I mean, other than the scope not being colored, it's just a really clean design, solid colors, and just looks good. Honestly, just gonna move it right below the Detour in A tier, because, it's just good. There's nothing really to complain about here. Then we have the Scout Orange Filigree. I think that's how you say it. Or filigree, I don't know. Filigree is how you'd say it in English or whatever, but... yeah. This is trying something. It does have a colored scope, so I guess that's kind of cool, but it's like so like dark that it almost looked like stock. Like it took me a second to realize that it had a colored scope. And the actual main design is there. It really just looks like that really old furniture that no one really likes looking at, but you just sit on and have because it's still furniture. But yeah, the design really does nothing. It's really dull and kind of doesn't look that great. I'm sure someone loves these designs, and for them, this is like their perfect skin. But for 99% of other people, this really is just a super, super dull skin, and honestly, probably deserving of a low D tier. Then next up, we have the Scout Threat Detected. Which, yeah, it's one of the first ones in a while, I think, that we had an actual colored scope, and it is colored a pretty solid color of white, which is always a plus. I love white on a lot of skins, it looks pretty well. But in this case, I'm not sure if it goes too well. Because the white scope is okay, but it doesn't fit this orange body in kind of really weird design that well. And on that note, the actual design of the body doesn't carry onto the barrel for some reason, so you almost have 3 separate parts of the weapon, none of which really go together that well, except maybe the scope and the barrel. But this orange and like light blue body really does not fit the rest of this weapon, and it looks super out of place. Honestly, if they'd done an orange scope and we made continue this design along the barrel, this could have been a really clean and nice looking skin. But it's just too... I don't know, there's too much going on here, and I don't think it looks that well when you put it together. So I'm just gonna put it as a high D tier. I'm gonna put the carbon fiber up to low C tier. I mean, still better than a lot of what we've seen in D tier, but that's just because it's somewhat nice colors, but they really don't go together that well, so that's why it's in D tier. Then we have the Scout Spring Twilly, which... yeah, yet another white scope. This time the bottom design goes a lot better with the white because there's white in the design a lot, and the other half is like green. The design itself really isn't crazy. It doesn't look that good in my opinion. And yet again, the barrel itself is left stock, which kind of looks somewhat out of place in my opinion. And yeah, I mean that's all there is to say. Honestly, the other one probably looks better just because the color scheme is more vibrant. Like the orange and design is just the orange is nicer to look at than this green here. So for that reason, this kind of just goes under that one. It has like the same issue though of not the whole skin doesn't fit together that well, right? It has like a lot of cool individual parts, but it's not committing to any of them, which is kind of a problem. Then we have the Scout Slashed. I remember I used to use this for a long time. I don't think I have it equipped now, because I don't have it equipped now, I know that for a fact. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason I use this for a bit. It's basically stock with a bunch of orange little stripes all over the place, and it wasn't that expensive for a while. It even continues under the scope. And this is like a really bad condition one, or else I think it continues on the whole scope normally. But yeah, I mean, it's just slightly better than stock, if even. Just has a bunch of, like, this is a nice color orange, and that's pretty much all there is to it. The design is nothing crazy, it's barely really all that good, but it's good enough, honestly, to put it as a somewhat high D tier, definitely under that other one where the whole base is orange, and probably still under the one where the base is like green with a white scope. But it's not a horrible skin to use. It's just not all that great either. Then next up we have the Scout Abyss. This was another one I've used in the past, I don't think I use now. And, you know, there's a reason for it. The scope looks insanely good, but the problem is the other half of the weapon looks really bad, honestly. Like, luckily it's dark enough that you don't really see this most of the time when you're, like, looking at in-game. You really just see this super bright spot on the scope and the somewhat cool design on the scope. But the actual weapon itself on the bottom looks horrible. I'm gonna be completely honest. The parts that are stock and then this, like, super intricate dark blue design do not go together at all. You really just buy this one for the scope, and the scope looks cool. Probably a low C tier just for that scope alone, but the rest of the skin is really bad. Then we have the Scout Dark Water. I think this is another trade-up skin because of the collection it's in. I might be wrong, might be thinking of the wrong Dark Water. But yeah, basically stock Scout that's more shiny with a different base that has like a mid design at best. Honestly, looks worse than the stock's body. But the only difference being, I don't think the scope and barrel used to shine this much on stock, so I guess if you find the shine consistency to be a thing, then this is what you get, and if you still want stock, but honestly, this is basically stock, so I'm putting it in F tier, because just use stock, I mean, it comes free with your account. There's basically just no reason to get this. It's not bad, but it's literally just worse than stock. Then we have the Scout Necropolis, which is, you know, this is an interesting idea. Yet again, it colors everything except the scope. I really don't know why skins don't just go the full mile. There's like, maybe it's really hard to texture the scope or something, but in this case, they could have very easily stretched this texture they used on the barrel and just put it on the scope, and it would make the skin look just that much more complete. That being said, the actual design on the skin's somewhat cool. They have these little, like, spikes going along this little, like, zigzag, like, Z shape on the weapon. And then they have all these, like, runes, I think. It just reminds me of runes. It's only on one side, though, which is kind of interesting. Not that it matters, because you only really see this side. Then if you really inspect it really hard, you'll see, you know, hunt them down in the back right here, which, you know, it's a nice small little detail. And there is some kind of design here, but it's so faint that I can't really make it out, but it is nice attention to detail. I think there's a lot of, like, this skin is actually kind of, you know, somewhat okay. This would normally be, you know, high C tier, mid C tier type of skin, where it's like, it's a pretty solid design, and you know, your eyes get really drawn to the runes, but for some reason they didn't do the scope, which kind of moves it down a lot in the C tier for me. It's still definitely a C tier skin, just probably under the nice, like, you know, blue and green one with a mid tier design, just nice color scheme. Then we have the one I'm currently using, which is the Scout mainframe. Which, yeah, I mean, it's just got a really, really nice body. I have this because it was really cheap, by the way. I think it was, like, what, like 5 cents? But yeah, it's got a really nice body to it. I really, you know, the design in the middle looks kind of clean overall. You don't really see this as a city, but you see it more as a maze when you're looking at it in-game. But it's really bright there, and then the rest of it has been made like a dark blue, which kind of fits well with the design. Like, it's a really nice overall color scheme on the bottom. The only real downside to this weapon is that, you know, yet again, the scope is not colored. I think they could easily maybe just made this, like, the scope, you know, some color blue, either the dark one, or maybe it would probably even look better with the light one, because it'd be kind of like going back and forth between these two. I don't really know. I'm not like a graphic design guy. Either way, this is really clean body with a non-colored scope. And for that, I don't know. Like, I like it a lot. I like the body a lot. There's a reason I own this. I'm gonna move the blue spruce up to B tier. And I'll keep this one at the top of C, even though I think I personally put it higher. I can't, like, justify putting it that high, because it's not as good as what I like looking at, right? Because I basically force myself to stare at the body when I'm looking at this. Then next up we have the Scout C Calico, which Yeah, I mean, this looks like the first skins we looked at on the bottom. Like, it just looks horrible. But the scope, I don't know. The scope is not a nice color, but it's a bright color, so it's very noticeable. The barrel, it's not textured, but the bottom, like the main base of the weapon, has like a really bad, like just kind of dullish design, to the point that it actually almost works with the stock barrel because it's so like dark looking, even though it has this really bright like yellowish color. Really like not great color of yellow. It makes it look duller while still being bright. Um, and that's all there's to say about it. It's kind of like a really iffy design. This reminds me of like pajamas for some reason. I don't know why. But it's not that great. I don't know if I can really put this in F tier though, but I do not like it that much, so it's gonna be one of the many scout skins we have in D tier. Then next up we have the Scout Ghost Crusader, which is another skin I just have never seen in game. And it kind of sucks that I haven't, because this is actually kind of cool. The actual design has a bunch of crazy, tech stuff or whatever, but what you really see when you look at this is just a nice white base with a nice black scope. I know it's the stock scope and all, but the white and black, like I said, work together almost like the tuxedo on the Detour. This is less white than the tuxedo, like in Detour, but it's just under there, right? This is like technically gray or whatever, but it's really close to being white. And when it's shining or whatever, it almost looks white. Maybe it's just really dark right now and I'm seeing shit, but either way, pretty solid base that actually works well with the stock scope. So I got to give it a lot of credit here. It looks pretty clean. Probably less clean than this one, which looks like it was designed for like special forces or some shit. But I'm just gonna put the Detour up in S tier because I don't know how many good skins are gonna come along to kind of dethrone it. Because right now the Detour is miles above the competition for me. Even though the stuff in A tier is definitely very usable, I would definitely consider using this, and I definitely would consider using the thing at the top of A tier is a really solid skin. Like don't get me wrong with that. Anyway, next up we have the Scout Death's Hand, which, yeah. This is clearly like some kind of intricate design or whatever, but I could not tell you what it is. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. The color scheme isn't exactly amazing. Like, this almost is the exact colors you'd see on like a camo skin that I don't like. The top scope also isn't colored, which I guess like another point down for this thing. Basically just has a lot of like things I don't like. That's all there's to really say. I don't know what the design is. I don't know what it's trying to do, and it doesn't even have a colored scope to save it, so it's just an F tier for me. Then we have the Scout Fever Dream, which I don't know what this has to do with Fever Dreams, but this is actually kind of an interesting thing. It's basically a scout with a bunch of like chalk art on it. It almost looks like. I guess the Fever Dream is probably referring to all these random different designs, but they're all really small, so I can't really read anything other than hashtag no scope, and if I could read whatever language this is here, maybe it says something cool too, and I guess, cry, and there's a lot of little small details that come together on this one, right, good night, and just a bunch of stuff like that. These little stars at the front are kind of cool, and then the color scheme on this is just absolutely beautiful. Since this is kind of just like drawn onto the stock, like, it's not actually drawn onto stock, like the back is actually different, but it looks like it should be stock, if that makes sense. And it just looks, I don't know, this one looks really clean. I like the colors a lot. The design on the actual, like, all the different designs are, like, work together. Like, there's no, like, one standout part of this weapon. Everything kind of meshes together to get something that looks pretty clean. The hashtag no scope, because this is a weapon used for no scoping laws, is just another nice touch. And honestly, for me, that puts it as a solid A tier skin. I normally don't like a lot of stuff like this, but this is just really well done. I can't really talk any shit about it. It's like the best they could have done with what they were going for. Then we have the Scout Parallax, which, yeah, this is an interesting one. It has that one, like, effect that I use in a lot of my thumbnails. I think it's called Frank or something, or maybe, Parallax is probably the official name or whatever. But yeah, you have stuff like the leave thing. I think that's the no scope icon, another reference. We got the 1 crossed out to 2-shot 1 kill because, the scout is 2 body shots to kill and the op is 1. Although you could get, 1 shot 1 kill assuming you're hitting heads, but most people using the scout do not. Just, like, you know, people do that in montages and stuff, but that's because they spend a lot of time to scout. And then you have like every little kill feed icon and all that just all in one, like the headshot and whatever. I can't read what this bullet says. It says something else. And then you even have like little 360 thing in the back, which, you know, another reference to the fact that the scout is like a trick-shotting weapon. Used a lot of trick-shotting things. Just a lot of cool references here, and it looks pretty solid overall. I mean, the color of red and blue are really nice together. The actual base of the weapon's got like an okay like little zebra design, but the barrel itself has like a nice little zebra design to it. The only thing I can really knock this for is having the stock scope, but the stock scope actually works with the rest of the design here, kind of like the other skin. So it's not as much of an issue that they have it. Like with a lot of the skins I've been like kind of knocking for having the stock scope, it's because it takes so much, it looks so out of place, right? But this one just, it looks fine. It's like the right color and everything, so it works very well. I'm gonna say I really like this one. Probably even more than the last one we looked at, but I can't really put it over that really like elegant one above it. So yeah, very solid A tier. Then we have a pretty recent one, the Scout Deathstrike. This is pretty much a trade-up skin now because the op above it is something people love, like the Desert Hydra, which is kind of sad because this actually looks clean. I mean, you have one really nice, solid, bright color with like almost like a goldish like sand powder going across the whole thing. You have this cool like little effect in the back where it's kind of, you know, it's hitting a wall and it's splitting two ways. And then you have like, you know, the scorpion right in the middle where people see it. Just kind of put together. Like the whole base looks great. I kind of wish they had the colored, you know, scope here, but the base looks amazing. It looks really clean. Looks really well done. Like the art is beautiful. And I don't know. I mean, the person that made this put a lot of effort into it. You can really tell, and it just fits together really well. And it's really unfortunate that it ended up as such a common trade-up skin. Honestly, gonna put this one above that like graffiti one, but still below the Parallax. And I'm gonna actually move this one down because I forgot it doesn't have a particularly colored scope. So I'm gonna put this one. I'm gonna put the Parallax actually as a low S tier. I think that's gonna be the scout I pick up after this like video, but we'll see, I guess. And yeah, I kind of move stuff around there, but kind of reflects my thoughts right now. Then we have the Scout Big Iron, which, yeah, I mean it's got a yellow base, which is kind of nice. Still uncolored scope. I don't know why none of these have colored scopes. Maybe it looks worse than I think it will. But yeah, I mean, really like HD yellow base, and that's pretty much all there's to say about it. Nothing crazy, like it's definitely not insane, but it's not bad. I mean, it's good. It's just a simple recolor. Probably put it above the Sand Dune and Blue Spruce just because it's a nice color, and those two don't have the best colors. Like I said with both of them, like the Sand Dune and Blue Spruce, they don't have bad colors, but they're not amazing, right? They deliberately picked like not amazing colors to have as the single color for those weapons, or two colors in the case of Blue Spruce. Then we have the Scout Bloodshot, which is one of those things where it's like a monster running along the weapon. But this one's kind of cool because you have these like super red flames coming across the front here, and even in the back right here, and the back right there. And you can see, you know, it's like killed something. There's some bones back here, and it's, you know, it's got like a little evil laugh with the eye going the other way or whatever. It's a really cool design. It's unfortunate that yet again doesn't use the scope. I think if the scope had these red flames on it, especially if they were like along the top, like going down, it could have looked really clean. That's the one thing. The scope looks super out of place here. Otherwise, it's just a really nice, solid design that works, you know, split well, work well. Really draws your attention to what you're looking at, and then, you know, holds your attention because it looks kind of nice. I'd say this is probably, because of the, you know, uncolored scope and the fact that it actually sticks out a lot because of that, I'm putting this at a high B tier. I think if this was a complete design, this would be high A tier, possibly low S tier for me. Then we have the Scout Turbo Peak, which, yeah, it's like the Vaporwave, like skin. Not Vaporwave, you know what I mean. Retrowave? I don't know, like one of those like, I don't know what I'm describing, but I think a lot of people understand what I'm trying to say here. That's pretty much what the skin is. You have like 50 little designs of like the cars driving and stuff, and then the color scheme of like the, I think Vaporwave is what I'm thinking of. I think that's the right term. Just Vaporwave stuff across the thing, and it just says SSG in the back. I mean, pretty clean. Relatively dull though, because all you can really see is this main pink stripe here, and then you kind of look at the car designs maybe. But, you know, the top's still stock. They could have easily made it like this color of dark purple or whatever, and it would have looked much, much cleaner, much more in place. And it's not too crazy on the base, like it doesn't do a lot. It definitely doesn't like not do a lot, but it doesn't do that, you know, that crazy. I'm gonna put it low B. It's honestly barely better than the mainframe, which I'm currently using. Then we have one of two coverts, probably one of the most infamous skins, mainly coming in from trade-ups, the Scout Blood in the Water. Really simple skin. I mean, it's actually a pretty solid design. The problem is it only uses like a tenth of the weapon. But I mean, it's literally a shark chasing the blood in the water. That's it. It really comes off the back of the weapon really well. And the blood's coming out pretty well. The problem is the other half of this weapon is stock, so it ends up not looking that great. Because you have like two very, very heavily conflicting things. But it's definitely not bad. It's definitely not horrible or anything. A lot of people really don't like it because it reminds them of their failed trade-ups, but I'd say it's above that thing with solid colors with bad design, and below, you know, like the carbon fiber. I think it's a pretty good spot for it, just right in the middle of the top of D tier. Yeah. Or C tier, sorry. Anyway, our final skin is the Scout Dragonfire. Which, I mean, yeah, it's pretty solid. You got the dragon just kind of coming off the back of the skin and breathing fire into the front half. Yet again, uncolored scope kind of ruins a lot for this design, but at least the scope doesn't look super out of place. Like it, at least with the blood in the water, a lot of the design stock, so the design stuck out even more and just kind of looked really out of place. With this one, it's not as bad, but it still is kind of a problem, especially when you have such an intricate design. Having such like a highly detailed and really kind of well done design here on the bottom, and then having just a completely differently colored scope here at the top that has nothing to do with the design, kind of looks bad, right? Because it's like incomplete. So honestly, for me, it's worse than the mainframe. I think the mainframe, at least, it's like just a design, and it's not like super intricate, so having a simple scope at the top that's still stock isn't horrible. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. Like only a few scouts had their scopes colored, and they were always like a solid color. But then they always had a really bad like body design for the most part. It's a very unfortunate situation. Hopefully, you know, a skin comes around with a nice scope and skin to go with it. But until that happens, you know, the detour is heavily on top. Like it's definitely the best thing I saw here today, by a long shot. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed. If you disagree with anything I said, feel free to disagree. I'd love to hear, you know, your different opinions on things. I make all these pretty much in one take, so I might even disagree with myself given a few months. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.